Tab Talks presents Unsolved, the conclusion. Crop circles.
And look at the pattern of the plants being swirled around, which creates this pattern as seen from above. And here again. So a lot of the artistry has to do with not only where the plants are bent, but how they're bent, what direction they're bent, so that when seen from above, it will shimmer in certain ways. Speaking of what happens from above, this thing that looks like a cone, a conical shaped cloud, appeared right above this formation. This is clearly the representation of an eclipse. As you progress from right to left, there it is, the total eclipse right there. Remember the pictograms from 1990? Look at that one. Huge. Just keeps going and going. So you can see how, in the course of 9 years, how things have progressed in terms of complexity and size. And this name, Lucy Pringle, she takes photographs from above and she puts them on her website. You can look for her, you can easily find her website, Lucy Pringle. She also gives tours every year. You can sign up for one this year if you like. You know, predictably, I mean, she has confidence that she'll have crop circles to take you to because they happen every year, right? You're seeing how predictable it is. And what happened to her was she had a tennis injury that had been bothering her for quite some time and hadn't been resolved, hadn't figured out a medical solution to it. She went inside a crop circle, and after she left, she'd never felt that symptom again. She was completely fine. Yeah, this ache in her arm or whatever pain it was that she had, completely gone. So she took a strong interest in finding out what does happen to people who go into crop circles, and not just people, but other effects. You know, for animals, for example, animal behavior, dogs will bark in a panic, or cows will moo before a formation happens. They know that something is about to happen that's totally out of the ordinary. Animals, as you're well aware, often are more sensitive to certain things than we are. Sometimes birds will fly overhead, but rather than fly directly over the crop formation, the flock will part and then rejoin after they've passed the crop formation. They don't want to be above the airspace of crop formation for some reason. Mechanical failures. A truck has sometimes can just, there was one time when a truck approached a formation and it just stalled out. It couldn't continue through. Often there is a power outage the night of a crop formation. And the audio effect mentioned there, sometimes there's a trilling sound that can be after the fact. You know, people who come to the formation to see it, they hear a trilling. It's almost as if the trilling sound is following them. So there are a lot of special effects, I guess you could say, for these formations. Here are some of the effects that Lucy has documented. Here, these effects are all quite unpleasant. And except until you get to the bottom here, feelings of peace, love and light, and a sense of presence are also, and it seems to be, and I'd love to ask Lucy this question, are you more likely to have the positive feelings if the formation has mellowed somewhat? You know, and if you go in right after it happens, are you more likely to have the negative sensations? I don't know what's happening there. This is her advice. Don't visit one of these formations if you're pregnant or thinking of becoming pregnant. Don't visit if you have a pacemaker, because it might throw that off. And don't bring your credit cards with you. They often get wiped. And it's documented that very many times when you go inside a formation, anything digital, whether it's a watch, a cell phone, a camera, all these things that are digital, they stop working. The battery drains, even if it's been recently charged. The battery drains mysteriously. You leave the formation and it's working fine. You go back in the formation, it doesn't work again. What is going on here?
Is it only a certain time of year that takes place?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Crop time?
Well, the crop formations themselves. We have now begun a crop season, a crop circle season. There were 4 in April already, and they always start with fairly simple formations, and then they get bigger as the season goes on. So we have just begun a crop circle season. If you go to cropcircleconnector.com and select at the top of the left column, latest circles, then you can see what's happening. You can see people's ideas, comments about every, a whole series of photographs. Sometimes you'll see close-up photographs from the ground, comments, articles. What are people thinking about this one? So Crop Circle Connector is the place to go if you want to be up to date about what's happening in 2017. But if you want to see past formations, and I can't possibly show them all to you, of course, in this time, either go to Lucy Pringle's website, she has galleries of photos, or you can go to Steve Alexander's website, Temporary Temples. Temporary temples, because after all, these are temporary. These are plants that are going to die at the end of the year if they're not harvested, because they're annuals, right? All those plants, wheat, corn, those plants die. So that's why they're temporary. The next year, it's a clean slate, isn't it? And farmers grow their crops again.
Do you have a list of resources for that? Or maybe I'll write them down after.
If you go to my website, johnroot.net, and select Majesty and Mystery Crop Circles, and then select the handout, you can download it that way.
So are these happening in England, or are they happening here?
They do happen all over the world, but southern England is always the epicenter. It's always the best place in the world, many more than elsewhere. They're bigger in general. They're bigger, they're more elaborate. Okay, many people experience dramatic life changes after going into a crop circle, rather like those who have a near-death experience. I've read many books about near-death experiences. It's a fascinating topic to me, and I think there's a lot to be learned from people who have actually been on the other side, which I believe is the case. It's almost like they're tourists who are coming back to tell us this is what you will experience when you pass to the next side. And near-death experiencers are never afraid of death after they've had their experience. They know with certainty that it's a place of ineffable beauty and love. That's our what we have to look forward to, right? But these crop circle experiences are being compared to, you feel like you're in your own little world. It's almost womb-like, totally secure. You may be limited physically, but not mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. You can access other levels of consciousness. And some people even report that they can heal others just from having been inside a crop circle.
Have you gone?
I have not. I haven't had the opportunity yet. So something happened to this formation, this slide. I'm not sure why there aren't. It should be filled. In July 1999, there were at least 16. That's one of them. A beam of light was filmed prior to the crop circle at that site. This is interesting, isn't it? It looks like there are cubes here that are suggested by the lines. Yeah, Chinese checkers, right? Yeah. Yeah, honeycomb, yeah. Here's Silbury Hill again with another beautiful formation right across from Silbury Hill. Oh, I wish I had that slide because this shows the formation from above. Here is the close-up of the magic basket. These plants are still standing in the ring, right? These plants are standing, but none of the rest. These are swirled here. These are laid out in almost like a checkerboard pattern. It reminds me a little bit of a pie with a, right? And that's why it's called the magic basket, because again, the way that the weaving effect, highly complex. And again, doesn't this look in some ways like a basket with the plants here in the very center? They're swirled. Here they're going out, pointing outwards. Here they're swirled again. very controlled. I want you to appreciate the humor of this one, where you have 6 5-pointed stars, and this one is a little bit different, isn't it? It's just floating off into space. Hey, get back here. You belong. Your place is right here where the rest of us are. What are you doing over there? And there's a similar humor about the asymmetry of this one. All these are supposed to be, well, maybe they're flames, right? They remind you of flames. But what's this one doing? Hiding inside here. It belongs out there with the rest of them, doesn't it? And I have no idea what created this effect, the way the plants are laid down. Do you remember in science class where you could put the filings, iron filings on top of a piece of paper and have the magnet underneath the piece of paper, and how the filings will arrange into this pattern, a pattern of interference?
Back in the 1940s, when I was in elementary school, I remember seeing some of these configurations in my history or geography.
Okay. This one is called the angel. And how can it be that a poppy, and there were several of these poppies, red poppies, standing proud and tall with all of the crop surrounding them down? Well, the crop had been laid flat, had been bent by the crop circle making energy. So suddenly, in the middle of the night, all these crops are pushed to the ground, they're bent, but the poppies totally unaffected. Totally unaffected. So it must be it clearly can't be mechanically flattened, because the poppies would be flattened too, right? Wow. Words fail me. So what feeling do you have when you see something like this? A feeling of awe? A feeling of that you're looking at something sacred, aren't you? Isn't that sacred? I mean, to even conceive of a design like that is such an inspiration. Even to conceive of it. Now, in 1974, this message was sent out, beamed out from this telescope, or this center, I forget what it's called, transmitting antenna dish, radio telescope in Arecibo, with all of this information, all of it encoded in a binary code, and with the hopes that perhaps thousands of years later, because it takes a long, long time for radio signals to get out far out into space, perhaps there'd be an answer. Well, it didn't take thousands of years. It just took a couple of decades. Here is Chilbolton Observatory in England. Chilbolton Observatory. There is a face right there, and there is their response. And what they said was, this is who we are, right? This is a representation of a human. This is who we are. We're smaller, but there are many more of us than there are of you. And our chemistry, remember, this is all about chemistry. Our chemistry, instead of being organic chemistry, you might be aware, is all about the carbon atom. Organic chemistry is all about carbon. Carbon is surrounded by a lot of other atoms. And they're saying our chemistry, our organic chemistry, is based on silicon. Very different, right? And this is what our genes look like, or you know, that compared to this double helix, theirs is somewhat different. they were using this, they interpreted using the same code that was used to make this one, because it's known how this, how this was represented. And I think I'll end here because I've run out of time, and or I could just, keep on going and show you all the many other slides that I have, and it gives you the idea of just how they keep coming, and they're so inspiring, and they're so incredible, and there's so much variety, right? And sometimes you have to wonder, right? Look at this. Are we being blessed here?
Do you have any connection with UFOs?
That's a good question, a reasonable question. And I don't think that anyone can say conclusively that it's coming from a UFO, but it certainly is highly likely, it seems to me, that an intelligence and technology that is otherworldly, beyond what humans can do, right, is involved. I really don't think that a team of humans can be responsible for everything that we're seeing. And so wouldn't it be logical to assume, right, that this is in fact a gift from elsewhere? And how many people have seen UFOs, right? Marine light wheels. Do a search for marine light wheels. They're another whole, moving wheels of light, almost like fireworks in the water, if you will. Highly controlled bands of moving light. So you can see there are a lot of slides in this presentation. It's hard for me to stop when I make these. No More War was encoded in Morse code in the field, the 70th anniversary of D-Day. And my uncle was shot out of the sky on D-Day. This is a very significant message to me.
This was the
Do you see how here is the Morse code for the letter N, Morse code for O, 3 dashes, Morse code for, and so that's no, the first word. Next word, M-O-R-E, next word, W-A-R. It's very clearly spelled out in English in Morse code. No more war. So don't you have this sense that we are being gifted, right? Gifted with these formations that speak to us. This is a universal symbol, the heart. I want to point out that all these random circles at outside of the ring occur only on the right side of the heart. Draw an imaginary line right through the heart, and you'll see there they are, right? But on the left side, they are not there at all. What does that mean? Something about our being of right mind, being of right heart? Could it have to do with the left and right hemispheres of the brain? I don't know. All these things are mysteries, and everyone is being invited to understand them according to what their frame of reference is. But I think all of us are being invited to be humble, think that we're not the ultimate, right? I mean, we're a very young species after all, right? So there must be intelligence beyond us.
They don't want anything to do with us because we're so wobbly.
But there is a lot of variety in this human species. Here we are, and none of us would want to say we're warlike. We're paying attention to this. And don't you think that they have enough faith in us and love us enough and care about us enough to be gifting us with these? And they have enough hope and confidence that this message is going to be heeded, that they keep giving them to us. They haven't given up on us.
They've got their work out with Trump.
They haven't given up on us, okay? They haven't given up on us.
They seem to know so much. Did I see Da Vinci's?
Yes, you did see Da Vinci's, yeah. That was in Netherlands, that huge, absolutely, astoundingly large symbol of the man with the two hand positions, just like Leonardo da Vinci, but it was made into a butterfly man, yeah. That was from the Netherlands, yeah. Well, thanks for joining me, And yeah.
The Voice of an Angel. In March of 2015, at approximately 10 p.m., 25-year-old Jennifer Grobeck left her parents' home to drive from Salem, Utah to Springfield, Utah. During the commute, Jennifer lost control of her car and landed in the icy Spanish Fork River in Utah. Jennifer was not alone in the car. Her 18-month-old daughter, Lily, was also in the car, secured in her car seat. At approximately noon the next day, a fisherman noted the crash scene and notified authorities. It had been 14 hours since the accident. When first responders arrived at the site, they believed it was simply an abandoned vehicle until they heard a voice calling for help. One of the first responders even noted that they responded to the voice, saying that they were trying their best to get there. As they got closer to the vehicle, they noted there were people inside. Frantic to attempt a rescue, the responders managed to flip the car over. Here we see the actual rescue effort. While the first responders immediately noted that Jennifer Grobeck was not alive, they noted that 18-month-old Lily was suspended upside down, still strapped in her car seat. The first responders were bewildered as to where the voice came from that alerted them to approach the vehicle, since it was clear that Jennifer Grobeck was not alive. The coroner also later confirmed that Ms. Grobeck died upon impact, so who called them for help? And how did 18-month-old Lily survive in those freezing temperatures for over 14 hours in conditions that required the first responders to be treated for hypothermia? Nazi war treasures. During World War II, Nazi soldiers pillaged communities, robbing them of rare artifacts from homes, private collections, and museums. These actions were taken to showcase these treasures in a museum proposed by Adolf Hitler. As the Nazis fled Europe after their defeat in World War II, it was reported that 4 Nazi soldiers buried gold and jewels in the middle of nowhere. It's believed some of these stolen artifacts are buried in the Netherlands. The Netherlands was a primary location of battle during World War II, and it's believed that Nazi soldiers used that location to stash the stolen property. It's estimated that these lost treasures may be worth billions. Apparently, a map has surfaced that was secretly maintained for 75 years, showing the location of these buried treasures. So how did the Dutch officials obtain this map? Reportedly from a German soldier. Since 1947, they've been trying to locate the treasure themselves, but were repeatedly unsuccessful. There have also been amateur diggers trying to find this hidden treasure. The Wright brothers patent.
The Wright brothers patent. The National Archives collect and store some of history's most valuable and rarest documents. As one could imagine, security is very tight in the most important historical storehouses in the world, but this doesn't stop thieves from ripping off some of the most priceless pieces. The patent papers that describe in detail Wilbur and Orville Wright's concept for their famous flying machine were stolen by an unknown crook without anyone even noticing. And it wasn't until 2003 that anyone even discovered that the papers were missing. Needless to say, the culprit has not yet been caught. An armed task force has been assigned to hunt them down.
Dutch Schultz stash. That's a mouthful.
Dutch Schultz's stash. New York mobster Arthur the Dutch Flegenheimer stole his nickname along with pretty much everything else that wasn't nailed down. He also amassed an empire valued at $20 million a year. As he was always hounded for tax evasion, Dutch did what Al Capone never thought to do. He packed his fortune into a big metal box and buried it in the Catskills. Planning to retrieve his hidden fortune after things cooled down, and well aware that when mobsters went to prison they usually lost their empires while locked up, Dutch kept the location of his fortune a secret from everyone. Later, he was gunned down like all mobsters are eventually. To this day, Dutch's huge fortune is still hidden in the Catskills and has never been recovered.
Strange photos. Very strange photos. In almost 200 years of photography, there have been some really mind-boggling photos that have been captured. Let's share some of those. 200 years ago, people in the United States reported enormous birds. And according to this story, this bird was shot down by soldiers during the American Civil War. The creatures are said to have lizard-like features, which is similar to the extinct pterosaur. Rhinebeck's Bigfoot. These photos were apparently taken in Rhinebeck, New York in 2009. Apparently, individuals said that the figures were 8 and 9 feet tall. And here you have these various photos from sightings all across the world. The St. Emilius UFO. If you pay real close attention to this painting that was done by Carlo Pravelli, there's a disc-shaped object in the upper corner suggesting that there were UFOs around 700 years ago. The time-traveling hipster. This photo was taken in Canada in 1941, but notice this gentleman in the photo. He's obviously dressed modern day, and look at the camera in his hand. Those weren't invented then. Then we have the Shroud of Turin, which is a mystery. This is the shroud Jesus was wrapped in after he was crucified. And what's interesting is the actual face. And how did that face come to be on the shroud? Jesus replied, "What is impossible with man is possible with God." The falling body. This one's really creepy. The falling body. You can see this family was taking a photo in their home in Texas, and when they actually sat down and took the photo together, when they looked at the actual photo after it was developed, there seems to be this other image in there, and that is still an unsolved mystery today.